Oh, it's a great day here in the Fox Den. Welcome in where leaders gather to grow. Randy Fox here with you alongside
Stephen
Stephen.
Fox,
There we
hello.
there we go. We hope everybody's doing great and spring is upon us here around the country. Well, let's dive right in. We always have an impactful, inspirational conversation, and then we have something with the trending topic. And I'm going to share the inspirational impact, and Steve will bring up a trending topic later. What's always cool, if you're new to the Fox Den, we do not tell each other what the topics are going to be. So it's a real organic conversation, all to help you grow personally and professionally. Well, here's my inspirational. You ready, Steve, for this?
I'm ready.
All right. He's like I said, he has no idea. I it's a story that it's just a really cool story, that true story. And there was a guy and journeying through life and came upon a an unfortunate tragedy, and we all face those in our lives, and yet still has to kind of move forward and navigating a season where his wife is not healthy and he still has to go to work and raise kids and really try to make a positive impact and live, even though there's something happening that is outside of their control. It's not a happy thing, right? Anytime someone's facing a crisis, let alone when it's health related. And that journey uh, takes a variety of different paths. But what was inspirational is that the different people that came around during this time, but as the illness got worse and worse, it became evident that unfortunately this man's spouse was not going to survive the illness here on Earth. And a few weeks before uh, she passes away, we get to this inspirational impact. And I really hope that our listeners grab it. And I want to get your thoughts that when we are so busy in our lives, that when we don't have any space to see and react to what's going on around us, we might miss some of the greatest opportunities of impact. And what transpired 3 weeks prior to the passing of that young woman is that this guy's brother dropped everything, his whole life, flew thousands of miles, and shared the last 3 weeks caring for his brother and being there to the very end, because that's how important it was. And it's a powerful inspiration. And I wonder sometimes how many people, they always say, my thoughts are with you. Oh, my prayers are with you. And believe me, as a man of faith, prayers are powerful. Yet sometimes action and actually being present for people can really bring a lot um, to a situation and for people. So you didn't know, excuse me, that I was going to share this story. And now for our listeners, the guy was me, Randy, and the brother that dropped everything and came and spent the last 3 weeks when my first wife passed away was none other than Stephen Allen Fox. So, welcome to the Inspirational Impact Story. Steve, what are your thoughts?
I don't remember signing a release that you could tell the story.
You're right,
um,
you didn't sign a release.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I think that well, it was when you first started telling the story, I'm like, oh, I think he's talking about himself. I didn't know that the you were going to talk about my part in the whole thing as well. Um, the I think it's kind of funny because this ties into something that I was just telling a group of students on Saturday. There was a group of students, music students from a Christian school. I don't think a Catholic school, Christian school in Arizona that had come to where the school I run, the Crescendo School of Music and the Hunt Recording Studio are in this facility, which is a Salvation Army facility. And they were coming to experience doing a recording session and kind of learn what it's like to do that. And afterwards, the recording engineer and I did a little Q&A with them. And the engineer brought up to them the idea of bigger things than yourself in life, and that um, doing things um, for other purposes. And I think the story he was telling is his attempt to glorify God and to do those types of things. And he was passing this on to them specifically also because they're from a Christian school. But I told them the story of the lady coming up to me on the beach after a concert crying and saying that she was crying because the last time she heard the 1812 Overture live was when and we talked about this in a previous episode, was when she was with her husband before he passed away, and that we had brought him back. And in that moment, I realized, I'm what I love doing is for bigger than myself. The point of the story being, when we do things, if it's with the right intentions, um, we're not thinking about uh, trying to be inspirational. We're not thinking about what the hindsight's going to be later. Um, I think in the story you told, it was, something just inside of me was like the right thing to do. It's like I should be there. And I think maybe that's the lesson for me. That's the thread of the whole thing, is that sometimes, um, there are times in life where things that are uncomfortable have to be addressed or dealt with, or things that nobody likes to have to deal with are just a part of what is. And I've always been somebody that does a gut check. And, my gut check is basically two things. One, in the future, if I look back on this moment, which choice is the one I'd rather have looked back on and said, I'm glad I did that? And the second thing is, I play a little game with myself, and usually in most cases, I have to quote unquote sleep on it. And then when I wake up the next day, if you just think to yourself, what decision do I want? And you choose one, your gut will kind of tell you. If you're really in tune with it, it'll either get really uncomfortable but kind of feel right, or it'll just be like, no, 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 don't do that. And it's that intuition, and it's that being spoken to, of listening and resonating, and like, okay, what should I do? And yeah, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, I wasn't a band director for very long. When I was a band director at El Segundo High School, I'd only been there for a short time. I don't even think I'd been there a year yet. And, I'm having to tell the principal and the assistant that I had hired that, I'm leaving. And I remember them asking me, when are you coming back? And I said, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, because we didn't know. And to your point, and I love your two-step process. I think there's this part where, right, are we listening to what God wants us to do? And are we being responsive to that? And then if I could suggest a third one, would be put yourself in that space. And what would you hope that someone would do for you? It really is interesting though, because to your point, you dropped everything. You had kids of your own, you have a wife, you have employment, and there's so many people that would say, well, I can't, I don't have time. And it's like, but what you have, the only thing you have that in your life truly is your time. Because money comes and goes, health comes and goes. So what do you choose to do with your time? And I think maybe we're talking about something very extreme, but let's just bring it back to actual everyday moments. What do you choose to do with your time? Because that time never comes back again. And making wise choices. Now, we're certainly not suggesting to people to quit their jobs and abandon their families and we're saying what's most important in this moment. Where is the best yes that I can get? And I don't want to get too far deep into different topics, but at the end of the day, there were a lot of really good things that you could have been doing and you had signed up to be doing, and you said they're good. But in this moment, for right now, the best thing I can do is go there and be for my brother. And I just want to encourage people to always choose the best thing, not just the good thing. And like you said, put some space, maybe sleep on it, and prioritize others, in that process. I think it can, change the
Well,
change the world.
and to take this into a job setting, I mean, I will admit that I'm the type of person that if my boss at the time had been like, well, I understand, but I don't know, we really need you back here. I probably would have asked myself, is that really where I want to work?
Exactly. And
You
maybe you're
know,
not going to quit. Maybe you're not going to do something stupid, but you might start a different trajectory based on that critical of a conversation.
right, exactly. And, um, I actually had a job previously, years ago, where one of our grandmothers was in bad health. And I had a boss at the time, and it was only a part time job. Um, but I had a boss at the time that uh, showed some frustration about me asking to take a little time off. Um, and I did not quit right then and there, but I was not there very much longer.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Because
just
it became a value prioritization issue. And I think that's the thing. What's the best thing? We need to align ourselves with who we marry, right? If you're a single person out there, you do not compromise when you're choosing who you're going to marry. You have to have the same values and priorities. And when you're at work, yeah, people are like, well, I can't quit. I make too much money. Oh, so you're sacrificing your values for money. I don't think that works well in the long term
and
because
I
we
think
now
that's
have gotten out of whack into what's truly important. And then we wonder why we maybe aren't as fulfilled because we're not making the choices of what is best. And in that moment, you chose a people relationship. Um, and again, we could talk about this for hours, right? All the different choices people make each and every day. Just really be intentional, people focused, and prioritize what is best that aligns with the values and priorities in your life.
And I think just to flip that for 1 second as a final thought on my part is that think if you are somebody who is a leader of people, also consider all of this. And that is the fact that someone may come to you and maybe what you value is slightly different than what they value, but however you lead them and however you force them, so to speak, to make certain choices, that might determine whether or not that person keeps working for you or not.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes maybe you don't care, but in other times, if this is somebody you want to keep, then you have to, as a leader, you kind of have to take on that. Just because they may see the world differently than you, if there's somebody you want to keep at the job, you can't ignore who they are as a person and what they value when they come to you, with that hope for you to see it their way.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to just say we got to see others and we've got to prioritize things for others. And it can be an inspirational impact moment. By the way, folks, this story that we just shared happened 20 years ago. But that's the power of an impactful moment. Time for the trending topic.
Yes. And so today I was driving in the car, and on My FM, Valentine in the Morning is the name of the show. They asked callers to call in with stories of people who just got up and left their job. Didn't say anything to anybody, didn't want to do anything, just said, I'm leaving. And they just walked out and never came back. And they said, we always hear people talk about how, what if I just got up and left? What would they do? Or what if I go to lunch and I don't come back? What would they do? And they said, we want to hear from people who actually did this. So here is what I throw out to you. Every single one of the callers that I heard after they asked people to call in, the reason they did it was because of how they were treated. It was because of the relationship. It wasn't about the job. And I'm curious what you think.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of thoughts. And first of all, the first one, it reminds me of all of the studies as well as, decades of personal experience leading teams in small companies as well as multi-billion-dollar organizations. People typically do not leave because of the job. They typically do not leave because of the money. People are typically frustrated because of how they are treated, how they are led, whether it's one leader or the culture. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've been coaching people, speaking about. My last books have been about it's culture and how we treat people. It's the number one reason, as you just said, that people will leave. And now, if we have treated them poorly, right, there's one half of the conversation that I think we need to be aware of as leaders, that we need to know our people, we need to be intentional about our culture, and we need to be ensuring that we are very intentional on how we go about. We don't just check boxes and get tasks done, but we invest in our people and the culture so that things like this don't happen very often. But now I want to flip it the other side. And I have been there where you felt that you were used, devalued. You as a person were not important. It was you were just basically an asset, like you would buy a piece of machinery. And I've experienced that, and it does not feel good. Anybody out there listening that has ever experienced that, you want to walk out the door because you feel like they don't care about me anyway. I would say to those people, though, you have been mistreated. Do not then mistreat them. Because the right thing to do is to not just walk out the door and ghost somebody. The right thing to do is to provide them with an appropriate type of notice to say, I'm leaving. If they want to know why, you could say why, or you could simply say, this is not a fit. I know some people say you have to give 2 weeks. I don't know if there's some magical number, but I think stating to somebody, having enough courage and respect to say, even though you didn't honor me, I'm going to honor you. Our grandfather, who has been passed away now nearly 30 years, can you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
We're coming up on, it's like 28 years now. So wise in so many teachings that he gave us. But one of the things he used to say is when somebody treats you poorly, you treat them with kindness. And it's biblical. It's the right thing to do. I just don't think people should walk out. If you don't want to come back the next day, don't come back the next day. but at least have the respect to walk up to somebody and say, this isn't working for me. Today's my last day, and out you go. But certainly the onus is on the leadership that this is even happening. And people are not investing in growing as leaders and being intentional about their cultures. And the organizations that do that, this is what ends up happening.
Yes.
There it is.
That's exactly right. And I think we've all been there at different times, and whether or not we've walked out, obviously, maybe not. But I think we've all had situations where we're working for somebody that that maybe we don't feel seen, or we don't feel respected, or it's not a great environment. And I think what I would just say is that you hear a lot in certain sports teams are this way. You hear about fraternities and things that have initiation processes, and what you'll hear is something like, "Well, we had to go through it, so the new people do too." No, they don't.
That's right.
If you didn't like it when you had to start, then don't do it. That means it shouldn't be happening. And that whether that's hazing, initiations, whatever it is, you can have your initiation process that a new person goes through. I mean, all jobs have a training, and a training is like an initiation. It's just you can do it in the right way. If you're doing it in the way that you didn't like, or if you're treating people when you're the boss the way that you were treated because that's the way it works here. I hear it in the entertainment industry all the time. Well, these hours are crazy. And I say, well, why don't you make a difference? Well, I can't do that. Well, no, actually you can. Well, then somebody else is going to get the job. Right. But if nobody ever changes it, it will just keep getting worse. Yeah. Somebody at some point has to stand up and be like, nope.
Right.
And
no, that's right. You have to be a cycle breaker and yep. Go from there. Well, the time always flies by, and we hope that this has inspired you, given you some thought to change maybe how you treat others and how you make decisions and grow as a leader. And if we could ever help you, you can find Randy Fox here at foxpoint.net.
And I am at StephenAllenFox.com.
We'll see you real soon, everybody. Thank you so much. We wish you well. Till next time on the Fox Den.